Hello everyone and welcome to this class. Today we will be looking at the parts of a violin. So at the end of this class, it is expected that students should be able to identify the parts that make up a violin as well as a bow. So if we take a quick look at the parts of the violin, up here you'll see that we have a scroll, this scroll. Okay, that convoluted part of the violin is known as the scroll. Here we have the tuning pegs. These pieces of wood sticking out here, these are the tuning pegs. Okay, now I must say that these tuning pegs are what we use to tune the violin. It is very important that we do not twist the pegs, otherwise the violin will go out of tune, and no matter how well you can play, the violin will not just sound right. Okay, so if you have issues with the tune of the violin, of your violin, please call the attention of your teacher to it. Again, these are the tuning pegs. Okay, if we go on to the next part, the next part we have here is the neck. Okay, so this region right around here is what is known as the neck of the violin. Okay, the next part we are going to look at quickly is the body of the violin. The body of the violin is this brown part here. Okay, and right here we have what is known as the F holes. Okay, if you look at the holes, they look like cursive letter F. Okay, and that's why they are called F holes. So those are the F holes. And here, this black piece of plastic, usually plastic right here, is what is known as the chin rest. That's where you rest your chin. Okay, when you are in the playing position and you want to play the violin, that's where your chin will go to. This black piece of plastic right here is what is known as the tail piece. Okay, that's the tail piece. And right here we have very small tuners. Okay, they work together with the tuning pegs, and those are called the fine tuners. Here you have a little piece of wood that is pushing the strings up like a bridge. Okay, and that's exactly why it's called a bridge. And of course we have the strings of the violin. And finally, if we look at this part right here, this black piece of wood that is quite long, that is the fingerboard. Okay, that's the board on which your fingers would rest. Okay, so basically those are the most basic parts of a violin. Quickly we'll go on to the bow. Okay, so this thing that you see down here is, oops, I'm sorry about that. This thing that you see down here is what is known as a bow. Okay, it's a bow. You vibrate the strings of a violin using the bow. So that's the bow that we have there. Okay, and as you can see, this wooden part right here, up here, is what is known as the stick. Okay, that's the stick. Right here we have the tip of the bow, and here we have the hair or the horse hair. Okay, those hairs are made from horse hair. I must say as well that as much as possible, when you handle your bow, try not to touch those hair, because the oil on your skin will eventually be deposited on the hair, and when you apply that bow to your violin, you probably will not get a sound from the violin. So that's the hair of the bow. And finally, this little piece of wood here at the end is what is known as a frog. So quickly we have seen the parts of the violin, and we have also seen parts of the bow. Okay, so quick quiz here. What is the name of this instrument? If you have been listening, you would know that the name of the instrument is the violin. Next one, this right here is known as a, if you have been listening, you know that that's known as the bow. The part of the violin labeled as 1 is known as, if we look closely, we see 1 here, and 1 is pointing to this little piece of wood here that is pushing the strings up. If we remember that, we know that that would be the bridge, okay? The part of the violin labeled as 2 is known as, if we look at number 2 here, you see number 2 is pointing towards this little piece of plastic right here. And if you have been listening, we know that that would be the tail piece. Another quiz here. The part of the violin labeled as 3 is known as, let's see, 3 is pointing to the strings, and let's see if that's correct, okay? The part labeled as 3 is known as the strings. Good job, well done. The part labeled as 4 is known as, let's see, this part labeled as 4 is pointing to this piece of plastic here, usually where you rest your chin. It looks like that's the chin rest, okay? Beautiful, that's the chin rest. And here, the part of the violin labeled as 5 is known as, if you look at 5 closely, see that 5 is pointing towards these O's. Remember, they look like the cursive letter F, right? Okay, so that means those should be the F O's. Beautiful, okay? The part labeled as 6 is known as, let's see, this is 6 right here. And 6 is pointing towards this convoluted part of the violin, okay? That should be the scroll of the violin. Okay, some people call it the crown of the violin, and so on, okay? So, the part of the violin labeled as 7 is known as, if we look carefully, you see that 7 is actually pointing to these little pieces of wood right here. Remember I said that we use these to tune the violin, okay? So that should be the tuning pegs, or simply the pegs, okay? So in summary, today we have been able to see the parts of the violin and a bow, okay? For the violin, we have parts like the bridge, the tailpiece, the strings, the chin rest, the F-hole, the scroll, the tuning pegs, and so on and so forth. For the bow, we have parts like the tip, the hair, the frog, and the stick. So I hope you enjoyed this class. See you in the next one. Bye.